greetings. Confusion and sadness continue to be a large part of daily living for many, but it is important to not judge by appearances. The many current situations of violence and strife represent a surfacing of old and dense energies based in separation that have long lain buried and silent both personally and collectively. The presence of high resonating light now streaming to Earth is exposing and allowing these old pockets of dense energy to reactivate. Those with a state of consciousness in alignment with these energies then feel encouraged and empowered to act them out. Some of the violence now taking place is a result of the manipulation of information by those intent upon keeping mankind locked into the bondage and control that has allowed them to live rich and powerful lives. For many, problems and discord are necessary components of their awakening. Commonly accepted ideas, practices, and beliefs that result in fear and trepidation for others are beginning to be seen in a new way by increasingly more individuals. Previously closed minds are beginning to open to understand that there are better, higher ways of doing things and that many of the old ways are no longer acceptable. These insights represent a crack of light in the dark that will eventually expand and become a part of the collective. Trust that all is proceeding according to plan. Stand back and bear witness to reality in all circumstances through holding the truth of one power and knowing that this one power does not and cannot express as fear, anger, violence, suffering, war, etc. Regardless of how scary or powerful the appearances may be. Remember always that one cannot war against itself. That one power is who and what you are, not in your humanhood, but in the reality, true essence, soul of you. It is the reason spiritual masters throughout time have guided seekers to look within rather than continuing to look outside of themselves for solutions on all levels. All answers lie within, not because there is some sort of magic book inside, but because your oneness with Source automatically constitutes your oneness with all that Source is: harmony, wholeness, completeness, intelligence, abundance, ad infinitum. The true essence of every person is and always has been self-sustaining, self-maintaining divine consciousness. However, most are not yet aware of or even open to the idea of oneness with God. The Master Jesus was crucified for attempting to give this very truth to the people of his time. Once an individual has attained a consciousness of their oneness with Source, the inherent qualities of divine consciousness automatically begin to express simply because consciousness is the substance of form. Many know this intellectually, but choose to continue believing that living truth is an impossible goal, not practical, and works only for those more spiritually evolved. But you are them. For example, a consciousness of oneness with divine harmony allows it to express as harmony in ways that are personal to each individual. Every person expresses their state of consciousnesses. Harmony for one person may mean something completely different than it does for someone else. Harmony for one may mean family issues resolving peacefully and without effort. For another, it may simply be their daily work schedule falling into place easily. Consciousness never ceases expressing itself. Daily living for someone who has attained conscious oneness with Source becomes easier because the harmony, peace, abundance, etc. that flows from Source far outweighs any concepts of harmony, peace, abundance, etc. formed through the three-dimensional mind. Three-dimensional mind creations are always and can only be limited, drawing information from the collective through filters of duality and separation. However, it is very important to know and accept the difference between needs and wants for self as well as for others. Everything humans seek is already fully embodied in consciousness by virtue of there being only one consciousness, divine consciousness. However, most do not yet know this, and so continue seeking everything they believe they need from people, places, and conditions outside of themselves while believing that material issues and things are separate from the spiritual. Spiritual is and could never exist separate from the material because material is simply a concept, a three-dimensional mind interpretation of the spiritual reality. Even the very simplest of needs are met when one attains the consciousness of oneness. The completeness and wholeness of divine consciousness will express itself as what is needed according to the understanding of the individual. A mechanic will not find that new ideas for performing surgery flow into his consciousness, and the surgeon will not receive information about how to fix an engine unless that is the need of the moment, and then he will. Omnipresence, forms of transportation, omniscience, getting right answers and solutions, omnipotence, empowerment and strength to make decisions, and live an infinity of all good is the reality just waiting to be recognized. Ceremonies, mantras, practices, or anything meant to bring some desired outcome are in reality a form of idolatry. These practices are fine for beginners new to learning about energy, but if you understand these messages you are long past that point in your journey. Many hold themselves back by continuing to hold on to old religious teachings about what constitutes spirituality. No one person's journey is exactly like another because everyone has had individual experiences throughout their many lifetimes which have resulted in the need for different lessons and goals. To believe that you must live or suffer exactly like some saint or famous holy person in order to be closer to God serves only to prevent you from finding your own spirituality. Energy was studied in the mystery schools of long ago, but some at that time were not of a high state of consciousness and discovered that they could manipulate and use what they learned selfishly. This is how the black arts began and continue for a few. Never fear these things, for lower energy can never affect the higher unless it is given power to do so through fear and a belief in its reality. You may feel content with life, going along enjoying harmony and wholeness, when suddenly you find that something very inharmonious has entered your life. This does not mean that you have somehow failed, but rather that your realization of harmony as your own consciousness is automatically clearing everything not in alignment with it. Never claim a problem or difficulty as personally yours, for this will make it yours. All error on all levels is and can only ever be in personal belief. The higher self of every individual directs their spiritual evolution, but free will and human ego can temporarily block it. Because the human ego is rooted in beliefs of separation, it is often afraid, anxious, and unable to trust that there is order in a world that presents itself through experiences of duality and separation. Most humans feel separate from the good simply because it is what they believe, it is their state of consciousness. Remember, you are creators forming your outer from your inner. Many of you are fully prepared to move beyond duality and separation, but any remaining pockets of low vibrational energy stored from lifetimes lived in low resonating energy must first clear in order to be replaced with frequencies of light. This ascension process is different than it has ever been, because you are doing it while still utilizing a physical body. The mind does not always know what is actually happening with the clearing and integration process and translates it as pain or error. Ascension symptoms. Trust that all is proceeding according to plan, even if it doesn't feel or look how you expected it to feel or look. Once an individual consciously or unconsciously chooses to spiritually evolve, they cannot go back to their previous state of consciousness. Life experiences now become facets of their spiritual learning process. Making the free will choice to evolve shifts a person out of the level of chance and accidents that those living fully in the three-dimensional belief system experience. But if this choice was made on an unconscious level, the human mind will often attempt to block it, leaving the person wondering why they seem to experience so many life lessons. Making the free will choice to evolve shifts a person out of the level of chance and accidents that those living fully in the three-dimensional belief system experience. Trust that your higher self knows where you need to be, what you need, and how to get you there. You have reached the spiritual point at which outgrown beliefs of the past must be allowed to fall away in order to live from a new and higher level. This facet of the journey is often difficult because you have become accustomed living life from the three-dimensional principles that were taught you from childhood and have served you well. Let intuition guide you in all matters, as some of the old ways are valid. Televisions, phones, advertisers, books, etc. shout out. This is how to become successful, rich, beautiful, popular, strong, smart, etc. And in ignorance at one time or another, almost everyone believes it. Even after awakening to truth, these concepts have a way of working themselves into and remaining in consciousness because they dominate collective thinking. Stay alert to what you allow into your consciousness and do not feel guilty if you occasionally slip into old programming. Evolution is a process. You cannot fail even if it takes time for you to fully accept some truths. Simply keep yourself open and fluid. Love allows everyone to unfold at the pace that is highest and best for them. Some will grasp these principles and run with them, while others may need time to ponder for a bit. But the spiritual evolutionary journey of every soul toward the realization of oneness never ceases. Limit news watching. Seek quiet when you can. Meditate often, but not in the old structured and rigid ways many of you were taught as beginners. Let meditation become a silent, sacred, and secret resting in truth while walking in nature, behind your desk at work, simply doing dishes, sitting in your favorite chair, or even in the midst of chaos. The whole reason you are on earth at this time is to remember who you are and then help others to do the same. It is a process that can be painful and scary at times, but you have learned how to reinterpret appearances. The head of a flying arrow feels the heat. You, the fully awakened ones, constitute the first wave, the head of an evolutionary arrow. You are loved. We are the Arcturian Group.